Good afternoon. Over the past year and a half, I have been openly critical of Representative LaMonica McIver on numerous of issues, particularly where I believe her policy position on immigration differed from what many New Jersey residents expected from the elected official. Those reports and commentaries reflect my analysis on those issues and the concerns expressed by many of our viewers. But journalism also requires acknowledging when public officials take action that deserve fair consideration, regardless of previous disagreement. This week is one of those moments. On Thursday, July 2nd, Representative McIver introduced the Summer Meal Reaching Every Area Child Hunger, or REACH Act, in the U.S. House of Representatives. The legislation is designed to expand access to free summer meals for children when schools are closed during summer vacation. The Senate companion legislation has been introduced by Senate Andy Kim. The goal of the legislation is straightforward. Millions of children depend on school breakfasts and lunch programs during the academic year. When summer arrives, many families lose access to those meals. According to supporters of the legislation, only about 16% of children who receive free or reduced price school lunches continue receiving summer meals during the break. The statistics deserves attention. No child should go hungry simply because school is out for the session. Representative McIver argues that existing federal rules makes it unnecessarily difficult for schools, churches, food banks, and community organizations to reach children during the summer months. Her legislation seeks to remove those barriers by allowing more flexibility in how meals are distributed. Those are compassionate objectives. They deserve to be discussed seriously, but good intentions alone are not enough. Public policy should always balance compassion with accountability. The REACH Act would make several significant changes to the current summer food service program. First, it would eliminate area eligibility requirements, allowing all sites to provide free meals regardless of neighborhood income qualifications. Second, it would eliminate the requirements that children eat meals on site, allowing grab-and-go meals distribution at participating locations. Third, it would replace certain on-site monitoring requirements with more flexible remote monitoring options for sponsored administering programs. Supporters argue these changes would reduce administrative burdens, reach rural communities more effectively, and make it easier for working parents to obtain meals for their children. Organizations including Hunger Free America, Hunger Free New Jersey, the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and the American Federation of Teachers, and several other advocacy organizations have endorsed the legislation. Those endorsements demonstrate broad support from organizations focused on food insecurities. At the same time, legislation involving taxpayer-funded assistance programs should also prompt questions about oversight. As a journalist, asking those questions is not an attack on the purpose of the legislation. It's a part of a responsible reporting. Recent history reminds us why oversight matters. One of the largest pandemic-era fraud schemes involved Minnesota's federally funded child nutrition program. The case centered on the organization known as Feeding Our Future, whose operators and associates were accused by federal prosecutions of federally obtaining hundreds of millions of dollars intended to feed children during the COVID-19 pandemic. Prosecutors alleged that the false meal counts, fictitious food distribution sites, fabricated invoice, and shell companies were used to divert taxpayer money for personal enrichment. Multiple convictions and guilty pleas have followed in federal court. That case was not caused simply by nutrition programs existed, nor does it mean every nutrition program is vulnerable to the same abuse, but it does demonstrate that when oversight weakens, or even oversight fails to keep pace with expanding programs, the opportunity for fraud can increase. That distinction is important. There is currently no evidence that Representative McIver legislation could produce fraud similar to what occurred in Minnesota. There is also no evidence that organizations supporting this legislation have engaged in wrongdoing. Those are facts. However, reasonable people can still ask whether eliminating certain monetary requirements creates additional risks and whether adequate safeguards remain in place to protect both children and taxpayers. Those questions should not be viewed as opposition to feeding hungry children. They should be viewed as part of responsible governance. Government programs work best when the public has confidence that every dollar reaches intended purpose. If Congress expands flexible for meal providers, Congress can also strengthen transparency. Those goals are not mutually exclusive. Technology today provides opportunity that did not exist years ago. Electronic record keeping, digital audits, independent inspections, randomized compliance reviews, and stronger reporting standards can help verify the public funds are being spent appropriately without placing unnecessary burdens on legitimate organizations serving families. Accountability does not have to come from an expense of compassion. Likewise, compassion should never require abandoning accountability. Perhaps the strongest legislation is legislation that accomplishes both. As someone who has criticized Representative McIver in the past, I believe it is equally important to acknowledge when she advances legislation intended to address a genuine problem affecting families. Child hunger is a real issue. Families across New Jersey and throughout the nation continue struggling with rising food costs, inflation, and economic uncertainty. Children should not bear those burdens. Representative McIver deserves recognition for bringing attention to that issue. At the same time, Congress also has the responsibility to ensure taxpayer dollars are protected throughout meaningful oversight and effective safeguards. The Minnesota fraud case serves as a reminder, not as a prediction. It reminds lawmakers that large public assistance programs require strong accountability from the beginning, rather than corrections after the problem emerges. Those lessons can help strengthen future legislation. Ultimately, this should not become a partisan debate. Republicans and Democrats alike should agree on two fundamental principles. Children who need food should receive it. Taxpayer dollars should reach those children, not dishonest actors seeking to exploit the system. Those principles are compatible. If lawmakers can preserve the compassion at the heart of the REACH Act while maintaining strong oversight and independent audits and transparent reporting, they will have taken an important step towards earning public trust. That is why, while I commend Representative McIver for addressing an issue that deserves national attention, I remain cautiously optimistic. I hope the legislation succeeds in feeding more children. I hope Congress ensures that every responsible safeguard remains in place so that history does not repeat itself. Compassion and accountability should never be viewed as competing values. The strongest public policy achieves both. I'm Haylee Ficuciello, Senior Correspondent for Englebrook Independent News. Thank you for watching and have a good night.